Okay, so you're thinking about building an ADU in your Los Angeles backyard. You've probably seen the ads, right? A 90-day build. It sounds so quick, so easy. But what if I told you that's only a tiny piece of the real story? So let's get into it. The actual timeline from that very first sketch to finally getting the keys. I want you to have the full picture. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? The framing goes up in a week. The permit can take a season. It perfectly captures the heart of the issue. The part you can see, the hammer swinging, the walls going up, that's often the fastest, most predictable part. The real waiting game, the thing that will test your patience, happens way before anyone even breaks ground. So, about that 90-day number. Look, it's not technically a lie, but boy, is it misleading. It refers only to the on-site construction part of the process. The reality, especially for a brand new, detached ADU, is a journey that's going to take closer to a year, maybe even longer, once you add in all that crucial prep work. So, let's dive into the ADU dream versus the bureaucratic reality. Think of this explainer as your map for navigating that gap, so you can go into your project with your eyes wide open. First things first, let's get on the same page. An accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, is just this really cool way to add housing. You've probably heard them called all sorts of things: granny flats, in-law units, backyard cottages. They're all the same thing, a small, independent home on the same lot as a main house. So how long does that hidden prep work actually take? Get this, 4 to 6 months. Yep, that's how long the pre-construction phase typically takes all by itself. This is all the design work, the engineering, and getting the city's approval before a single shovel hits the dirt. This is the part that 90-day timeline conveniently leaves out. To really understand the full timeline, we gotta break it down. The whole process, from that first phone call to moving day, can really be seen as a pretty clear 4-phase journey. And here is the map of that journey. Just look at that first phase, design and permits. It can take up to 16 weeks all on its own. That's 4 months. Then the actual construction follows, moving from the foundation up to the final touches over the next 24 weeks or so. All right, let's break down phase 1. This is where your project is just paper. Your architect draws up your vision, an engineer makes sure it's not going to fall down, and then the whole package gets sent to the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety, or LADBS. Now that last step, the plan check, that's the big one. It is almost always the single biggest bottleneck in the whole process. Once you finally have that permit, we're on to phase 2. Now things start to get physical. The ground gets prepped, trenches are dug for water and power, and this is key. A city inspector has to come out and physically approve those foundation trenches before a single drop of concrete gets poured. Finding an old pipe or some bad soil here can cause your first real on-site delay. Phase 3 is where you see some really dramatic progress. The framing goes up so fast, and all of a sudden, bam, you have a building. But you have to pay attention to this sequence here. It is absolutely critical. Plumbing goes in first, then HVAC, then electrical. And the city has to inspect and sign off on all of that work inside the open walls before you can even think about putting up drywall. A failed inspection here means tearing things out and starting over. Ouch. And finally, we get to the finishes. This part of the project can often feel a little slow because the work is so detailed, Tile, paint, light fixtures, it all takes time. The whole thing wraps up with one last visit from the city inspector. Once they give the final thumbs up, you get the coveted certificate of occupancy. That's the golden ticket that means your ADU is officially a legal, livable home. Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this all look like in the real world? Let's ground this whole timeline with some actual numbers from recent projects right here in Los Angeles. This chart gives you a really quick side-by-side. A brand new, detached ADU, that's the longest journey, clocking in around 13 months. Converting an existing garage is a lot faster, more like 8 months. And a junior ADU, which is built inside the existing footprint of your house, well, that's the quickest path, usually around 6 months. And here is the hard data behind that chart. Just look at the Sherman Oaks project. A 750 square foot detached unit took 13 months and cost $380,000. And for that specific project, 16 full weeks. We're talking 4 entire months were spent just waiting in line for the LADBS plan check. This is the reality of the process. So the big question is, can you control this timeline? And the answer is, yeah, to an extent. Let's look at what can speed things up and the common pitfalls that can totally derail your project. This slide is basically your playbook for success. To stay in the fast lane, you have to make decisions early and then stick with them. Using a pre-approved city plan can slash review times. Ordering all your materials before you even need them avoids delays. And locking in your design prevents those costly last-minute changes. On the flip side, changing your mind mid-project or digging up some old, unpermitted work on your property can completely blow up your schedule and your budget. And speaking of budget, because of all those potential pitfalls, you absolutely need a contingency fund. The National Association of Home Builders recommends setting aside an extra 10 to 15% of your total project cost. And for older homes here in Los Angeles, you should probably consider that the bare minimum to cover any surprises. And that brings us right back to the main lesson. This quote just nails it. The work done on paper with the city is as critical as the work done on site with a hammer. You just have to understand that the bureaucratic timeline is just as real and just as important as the construction timeline. That's the key to a successful and sane ADU project. The path to building an ADU in Los Angeles is clearly a lot more than a simple 90-day build. It's a journey of paperwork, of patience, and, let's be honest, persistence. So the final question is really for you. Now that you have the real map, is this a journey you're ready to take?